We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
I never imagined that I would grow up to be in the prestigious and renowned field of asking people for money. Other than producing and hosting for Makilala TV, my day job is in the world of development and fundraising, and I love it. Just 3 years ago, I didn't even know what development was, and it wasn't until one of my public health mentors planted a seed that I may actually thrive in this development world. I, Rachelle Ocampo, am joined with my guest co-host Marilyn Abalos, who is a public relations, marketing, and project management consultant and an arts, culture, and community writer for the Filipino Reporter and other media outlets. To interview two other Filipino development leaders who will also share their experiences in raising money towards missions that they care about. Elz Cuya Jones is Deputy Director at North Star Fund, a social justice foundation that supports grassroots organizing led by communities of color in New York City and the Hudson Valley. As a daughter of immigrant Filipino parents and mother to a Black son, Elz's drive to confront and dismantle racism in all of its forms is a deeply personal one. Elz has worked in the nonprofit sector since 2003, holding development and communications positions at Harlem RBI, Women's Project, and Youth Speaks. Today, she is honored to serve as board treasurer of MADRE, an international human rights organization on the front lines of war and disaster. Our second guest speaker is Venessa Manzano, who is a nonprofit guru, professional fundraiser, entrepreneur, educator, philanthropist, and mentor. At present, she is a director of development at Foundation Relations at Columbia University Irving Medical Center. In 2008, she founded and has been the school director of the Filipino School of New York and New Jersey. So, Elz and Venessa, let's get into it. What got you into the world of fundraising and development?
I think it was first personal for me. So back in high school, nonprofit involvement, I wanted to raise money for Filipino children in the Philippines. And then moving here to New York City, I just got into nonprofit, and each and every of my roles has a nonprofit fundraising element to it. So.
Wow. So you started in, I think, Boston, right?
Yes.
Because you're like a veteran now. We had you here at Makilala one other time to talk about the Filipino school.
Yeah.
So congrats on your 10 years.
Thank you.
And so you've just always been in this role.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Elz?
For me, I didn't know about fundraising. I didn't study it in college. What happened was I wanted to be a television journalist. After college, I went into radio, and I was working in radio for a very long time, and I was waiting to be discovered. It never happened. I was never discovered, and the whole time I was in love with poetry, and I was into the arts. And someone, I was working in news radio, and someone in the alternative radio station told me about a nonprofit organization that I should check out because I was in love with poetry. And I went to see it, and there were these young people who were really speaking truth to power, and it was so powerful to see young people use their voices. And I said, I have to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And I went to all of their events. I was rubbing elbows with the executive director, and I was like, how can I be involved? And they brought me on to put on their annual events. And it was events and being so passionate about the work of the young people that got me into fundraising.
Wow, I love it. Yeah, a lot of people that I've heard and talked about in the fundraising world, they didn't go into like majoring in development Some of them go into like nonprofit management. Some of them have no idea that this was even an option. Now there's like a school of philanthropy, I think like in Indiana, that you could take courses and actually have a degree in philanthropy. So it's really something growing, and I feel like that we need to get those technical skills out there, which is what I was afraid of. I wasn't a grant writer. I'm not the best writer, and that's what I thought you needed. But there's so much more than that.
Right.
Yeah. And so other than getting into the field of development and fundraising, what sparks joy to you when you know, how do you tell that story to convince people to give you money?
I guess it just depends. You have to ask the right person for the right project. So at Columbia, I actually am focused on medical students, and we don't just go cold call, you know, hey, would you like to donate for this? We have a strategy. So in the whole field of fundraising, there's this art and science to it. And it takes time. It's all about relationship building. You have to find, first you have to know what your mission is. Second, you have to know what your strengths are, what programs you're offering, what it is you need funding for, your funding priorities. Third, then you go look at your current donors. If not current, then that's when you do your research. You know, who's the best fit? Who's the best time? When's the best time, and how much is the best, you know, how much is the best amount to ask for? So again, you have to plan it out as opposed to just going out there and, you know, knocking on someone's door and say, hey, can you just give me money?
Yeah. So having a strategy.
Yeah.
And for sure, it could be scary. Like they can say no. They can argue with you. They can ask you a bunch of questions that you might not know the answer to. And for me, what is really important when you're in that very anxiety-ridden situation where you're asking someone for money is really centering what it is that the money is going to go to, centering the mission, why it is that you're asking for this, who needs it, and where the money is going to go. So for me, I'm always thinking about the money that I raise goes to grassroots organizers who are working for all New Yorkers for affordable housing, to work for police reform, working to make sure that for immigrant rights. And so I think about that, and for the people who are on the front lines doing that work. And so it's no longer about me and my fear and my anxiety, but it's about what the money is going to go to.
You're basically advocating for those grassroots organizations to give money to.
Yes.
Type of thing. Okay.
And looking at it as an opportunity for the donor to be a partner in this work. Because otherwise, a donor wouldn't know about these grassroots organizations that are doing all of this important work. They don't have access to the activists and community organizers who are on the ground. So we're really like the middle person to have them be a partner into this movement that is so important and that will create a more just New York State.
So what I'm hearing is there's strategy and there's passion, or the mission. But if you're approaching your regular donors, whether they're companies or patrons or individuals, how do you, for me, for example, I might not feel comfortable asking people for money. How do I cultivate a relationship and then eventually ask them for money?
So the strategy we have, if it's an individual, you can take them to lunch, get to know them. It's just little, checking in. How are you? I mean, once you build that relationship, then you will know when the right time is, So
or it might actually just come up. They're like, I actually don't need to know all this. I just want to give you my money.
Right.
Which is like best case scenario.
Right.
I think that has happened to me one time. I was telling them about like our mission and like all of our programs, and they're like, oh, that's so great. Where do I put the check to? I was like, oh yeah, like it's really, you have to listen and check out their body language and just be open to the fact that they're already interested. So you kind of just have to.
And what I would add to that is all of what you all said, but make sure that when you reach out to a donor, it's not like the only time you reach out to them throughout the year is when you're asking for money.
Yeah.
You're also reaching out to invite them to an event, to tell them about some progress that has been made around this issue that they're interested in, give them updates. It's not always an ask, and that's a really important part of building that relationship.
That's true. What, in terms of the ask, what have been like the crazy creative ideas that you've been able to get people to be involved, to raise funds? Like any, like posing for like sexy photos, or like selling someone's
A date?
like a date auction. Like, have you heard of these types of strategies?
I don't know if it's illegal.
I guess Colombia doesn't do that. Okay, that's fine.
I'll share a really fascinating and wonderful new model of fundraising that is coming up with a lot of social justice funds is something called the Giving Project. And what it is it's not having donors simply write a check, but really be involved in the organization and the grant making. And it's a 6-month program. I know that sounds like a huge commitment of time and resources, but what it does is it really gets folks bought in. So really briefly, the Giving Project is a 6-month program, 22 people, New Yorkers, volunteering their time across race and class. So you have people in this group who are in transitional housing to 1%ers, going through a political education together to understand why grassroots movements should be funded. And so they talk about their relationship with money, which is different. And when are you ever in a room that is outside of your bubble where you're working together to dismantle oppression in all of its forms together? I mean, it's very rare. And then you fundraise amongst your networks, because if we're really going to make change out in the world, you have to start with the people in your life first. So talk to the super conservative person who is your uncle or your brother and try to make change there, so you really see like the work that needs to be done, fundraise together, and then do the grant making together. So they get to really have firsthand experience talking to grassroots organizers and understanding the work, and then making decisions. So this last Giving Project that we had at North Star Fund, about 22 people, they raised $261,000 from 651 people. So it was really like a grassroots effort, and got donors giving anywhere from $5 to $35,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, it just boggles my mind how rich people are, where we get donations from as $5 to $5 million. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but how do you really make sure that the donor feels that they're giving to something impactful? So I love that Giving Project idea. Is there any other ways that you really make sure that the donor is involved?
So for scholarships, you can invite the scholars to meet with the donor. We organize luncheons, and that way they, get a chance to meet them individually, thank the donor as well. Sometimes if it's research related, we invite them for a tour to meet the faculty members and to see the laboratories. So stuff like that.
And how is, I'm trying to get more resources to the Filipino community. I'm a little biased, but it's needed. We don't have a brick and mortar Filipino community center, and that is so frustrating. We used to, and it's just because, not just because, one of the factors is that we just lost funding. The funding was not sustainable. So how do we get us back on that track? How can we encourage more Filipinos to apply for grants and get funding?
I would invite them, if they're doing organizing within the Filipino community, because that's what we fund at North Star Fund. I would invite them to apply to North Star Fund.
Okay.
If what they're doing is organizing, which we define as systems change and not simply Band-Aid solutions to the problems that are happening in New York, but the kind of solutions that dismantle oppression, capitalism, racism, things like that. So if if that's what they're working toward, then we would love to support.
And I think it depends on the mission of the organization too. There's not a lot of funding for cultural and arts programs,
not.
unfortunately. And also, there are professional organizations. Those ones you can reach out to the much larger American so-and-so professional association for those types of funding. But again, it depends on your organization and the fit with the funder.
It's been my observation, the Filipino community, I'm quite fascinated by their fundraising projects. They have these dinner dances and they raise a lot of money. I don't know what the percentage is for money raised after expenses for a very lavish dinner dance for scholarships. And the millennials, they go to the GoFundMe or online. Is that also your observation of how the Filipino community or small Filipino groups raise, funds?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different ways, and what what cuts through all of the different ways, crowdfunding versus events, is storytelling. And as long as you're telling a good story through social media, through your crowdfunding platform, at your event, you're giving an opportunity for someone to really put the prospective donor into have the mission be alive for the attendee. That is the common thread amongst all of these different ways. And I would say don't do just one. Try all kinds of different things.
Yeah, there was at my organization, we are just starting to get into like the online platforms, and one of them is like text to donate. And at our event, we had the goal of $20,000, and we're like that. I don't know if we'll get it, but we'll try. Especially that our audience was more on like the older crowd, so we weren't sure how savvy they are with their iPhones or their devices. But we tried it, and every time that somebody texted to donate, you would see their name flash on the screen, and just having that recognition, that immediate gratification that, wow, my money is getting recognized. I'm getting recognized for what I'm donating. So I felt like that was something that we risked, that we tried it, and it worked. We reached our goal, and it was because we tried something different. So what are some other strategies that you've seen that people have, or maybe you personally have tried and didn't work?
Or worked.
Or worked, yeah. Hopefully, I want to learn from you guys.
The typical send in a letter, those don't really work out.
I agree. There was a time where everyone considered let's just do everything online. But really, direct mailing is still a way that we receive funding. Is people still like receiving letters in the mail?
Yeah, and plus, like what Elz said, add the story in it too. How you can share someone's story about, your fund has supported a student in the Philippines. This is what happens. As a result. So stuff like that.
How important do you think, there are umbrella organizations, if you don't have a nonprofit status, you can partner with, the grassroots can tap the resources of your organization, and reporting transparency after you get the grant. How important do you think that is for the Filipino community? There have been some stories in the past where funds have been raised and questions about managing funds raised for a certain mission. So how important is that from your perspective to donors?
I think that's very important. That's a big thing, just because nowadays people want transparency and they want to see how their funds are really being used, especially in this day and age with corruption. And so, the way we do it at Columbia, the donor will always ask for an annual report, and in addition to that, again, the stewardship, the cultivation, invite them, see what we're doing, just so that they're there and part of it.
Yeah, we also apply to foundations, and they require reporting, and we absolutely furnish those reports. And then for our donors, we have an annual report, and all of our finance documents you can find them online. But for our donors, many of our donors, because we're funding social justice, grassroots organizing, it's a very different kind of relationship. They're not needing reports or having to or wanting to direct necessarily where the money goes. We practice what is called trust-based philanthropy, and when we make grants as well, we make it all general operating. We trust that the organizers and the grantees, they're experts in their field and they know what they're doing and they know best what to do with that money. If they need it to buy toilet paper and to keep the lights on, that's what they need it for. We're not trying to be gatekeepers as much as possible. We're trying to move resources out into the field so that they can work toward justice for all people. We're not trying to accumulate wealth, to keep the money, to count our pennies. We're really trying to move it out because they'll know what to do with it, and they are the ones who are working on the solutions that we all need.
So you're a great resource for some of the smaller grassroots nonprofits, whether it's smaller, different missions, or is there any other resources where the Filipino community, some groups, whether they're nonprofit or not, can go to research?
There's also Chronicles of Philanthropy in addition to Foundation Directory. Some of them you might need a subscription, but I think it's a great investment. Google is always a tool that everybody can use. Just do search.
At North Star Fund, we like to say that we try to be the most accessible foundation to folks who are seeking money. So we want to be the ones who actually answer the phone. And if you have a question about, if one of our grantees have a question about how to do a 3-year budget that this other foundation is demanding from them and they've never done a 3-year budget before, we'll try to get them the help. You know, like we want to be that kind of funder.
That's so important. I really think that what is needed is just like the technical assistance and knowing where to apply, whether it be discretionary funding with the city council or research-based funding. I think we just need some more direction. We're not looking for handouts. I mean, that would be great if someone could just cut a check, but really, we have to work for it, and I think we're willing. I'm willing to do the work. I'm fine with that. It's just trying to find out where to get those resources and technical assistance of creating a budget, a 3-year budget, or having a grant writer.
There's also approaching, like you do, high-end donors, whatever. How do people find them?
Please share your high donors with me. I would love to learn.
We use Wealth Engine.
That's another subscription-based platform. But we also do, we look at Cranes, all the business publications. You'll see the wealth from them. You go to the companies that are public. They'll publish information about their board members, their assets. You can dig deeper and deeper to these individuals. Again, Google is a great place to see who's giving where and to whom. Just keeping tabs on the news.
I think it's really about aligning interests, trying to find out if you're trying to raise money for arts and culture, similar to like Kinding Sindao. They have this great fundraiser that's happening and have beautiful work that I really hope that they can keep sustainable. I'm sure their board is looking at who else would be interested in donating to an arts culture organization just like Kinding Sindao. And I think that's really the thing, is how to align interests with these high-end donors by using like Wealth Engine or Donor Search or even Google.
Foundation Center.
Yes, Foundation Center. There are those avenues, but I think also just going to events that they would probably attend and rub shoulders with the right people is really where you would find those relationships.
Or another thing that we do is we look at the either annual reports or the gala brochures of the organizations, and if you can look, you can see who the donors and at what level. So again,
Stop telling our secrets,
Vanessa. Trying to help the community.
No, it is true. It is true.
So if there's an organization that's similar to yours, look at who's giving to them.
Yes. Yeah, definitely look at people who have similar missions and seeing who supports them, and if they have enough money, they could give to both, and that would be a win-win situation. Yeah. So we do have to begin closing the episode. We have like another minute or two, so we can chill, add some more content to it. But really, in the field of fundraising and development, which I didn't think that I'd end up. I always thought that I was going to be, typical doctor or nurse. It really just led me into this position because of how much I thrive in those types of events and those fundraising opportunities. Yeah. So the question that I'd like to ask both Elz and Venessa is, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to share with the Filipino community about getting more funding to us? Like, how do we stream it more to the Filipino community?
I mean, a big thing is relationship building and keeping, and being able to say, a no is not a no. A no is a no at that time.
We're talking about fundraising here, okay? No is usually no. Usually
at that time. No.
Right.
No, it's not. So
yes.
I think just keep at it. This is a relationship that can be for life, and it's for a good cause. So again, just keep building that and make it genuine. I mean, this is going to be your partner for that cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
We fund at least 2 Filipino organizations, Damian and Ugnayan Youth. And I would say to Filipino organizers or activists who are looking to get funding, really make a case for what it is that you're trying to change out in the world, and then start asking, and certainly ask Filipinos. Like, we should be able to support our own communities.
I agree.
And there's some strange taboo about fundraising being weird, or why are you asking me, or something. Like, let's look at what we need to do as a community together to take care of one another and lift us all up, and think about that, and give it up, like give to Filipino organizations.
So I love that point, and I want to know, how do we get more information? How do we get people connected who are interested in fundraising to you? So NorthstarFund.org.
NorthstarFund.org.
Okay, and
then for Columbia, it's cuimc.columbia.edu, and for the Filipino school, it's filschool-nynj.org.
Okay, so thank you again, Elz, Venessa, and the Manhattan Neighborhood Network team. Maraming salamat to our supporters and viewers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.